Hello, everyone, and welcome to Psychedelics' Role in Healing the Invisible Wounds of War. My name is LynnMarie Morski. I am the host of the Plant Medicine Podcast and founder of plantmedicine.org, and I'm also medical director of Way of Leaf. But I'm a former physician at the Veterans Administration, where I was for 9 years, and so this cause of veteran healing through psychedelics is one that's really near and dear to my heart. So I'm very honored to be able to bring these panelists to you today. I've had the honor of interviewing all of them on the podcast, and they have incredibly important stories, and they're doing work that is so necessary right now. So thank you so much for joining to listen. And as today is Memorial Day here in the United States, I can't think of a better way to honor the fallen men and women of our armed forces than with supporting these organizations that you hear about today that are working to help our current veterans with the mental health struggles. All right, we're going to start by giving a little bio. We've got Jesse Gould. He is founder of Heroic Hearts Project. Jesse graduated from Cornell University with a degree in economics. After working investment banking for a short time, he enlisted in the Army and became an airborne ranger for 4 years and 3 combat deployments. After struggling with severe anxiety for many years post-retirement, and attending an ayahuasca retreat, it had a profoundly positive effect on his anxiety and daily life. This experience inspired him to found Heroic Hearts Project, an organization that connects veterans in need of healing with ayahuasca therapy. And we also have with us Marcus and Amber Capone. Marcus and Amber are the founders of Vets Incorporated, which stands for Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions. Marcus served as a Navy SEAL for 13 years and completed numerous combat deployments. Following his retirement, he and Amber were faced with addressing both his traumatic brain injury and his post-traumatic stress. After a number of traditional treatments failed, Marcus agreed to a last-ditch effort of psychedelic-assisted therapy, which he attributes to saving his life. Astounded by the overwhelming success of the treatment, the couple immediately went into action, helping others in their community, close to 200 to date, by providing means for additional SEALs to seek these life-saving interventions. After proving the concept through IRB-approved research, Vets Incorporated was born in order to grow and continue the mission. So like I said, we'll have the links for you to donate in the chat. And let's get started by welcoming Jesse, Marcus, and Amber. Hey, everyone.
Hey, LynnMarie. Thanks for having us.
All right. Thanks to everybody for being here today. I wanted to start just by getting your military background to give us a little bit of idea of what set you up for that journey into psychedelics. So let's get started with Jesse.
Yeah, of course. And I just want to echo, as you said, today is Memorial Day, and it's one of those days that we take some time out of the day to appreciate what we have, but also appreciate those that have fallen in service of this country. And some of that's come in combat, and some of that, unfortunately, has come as a result of mental trauma, which myself and the Capones are doing our best to help combat. So as you mentioned, the bio, my background was Army Ranger. And, you know, I had a few deployments to Afghanistan. I was a mortarman, so I was exposed to a lot of concussive force. And when I got out, there's not really a lot of information on what you might be struggling with when you're returning or when you're going into being a civilian. And so for a while when I got out, I tried to, go back into finance and live a normal life, but there was always this dark cloud that was ever present. And for a while, I was successful at ignoring it, but it just became more and more of a presence in my life and started having negative repercussions on just social, just my happiness, on how I dealt with it. And again, there really wasn't a game plan or a strategy of how to figure it out, how to move forward. Unfortunately, going through the VA, the Department of Veteran Affairs, offered very little solutions outside of powerful medications, which I wasn't interested in. And so essentially at that point in my life, I was left to my own devices to figure it out. And again, I just ignored it for a while, self-medicated a lot with alcohol. But eventually I heard about something called ayahuasca, and at first came into it very skeptically. I came, from the DARE generation, just say no to all drugs. But fortunately, it planted some sort of seed in my head. And I came to that point of necessity in my life where I knew I needed to make a major change. And so I took that plunge, and I'm happy I did. It definitely, I would say probably saved my life, or at least put it on a positive course to where I can be much healthier, have healthier relationships to this day.
Thank you for sharing that, Jesse. Marcus and Amber, if you could, well, let's start with talking about a little bit about Marcus. I know you had the post-traumatic stress and TBI from the service, but if you could even take us back, because I know your TBI history started more with you playing football. So if you could talk a little bit about your history of what brought you to the issues you were having post-separation.
Sure. Thanks for having us. I'm very excited to be here. And Jesse, that was a great introduction. So thank you. And thanks for sharing your story. Yeah, I think I remember my first hard collision at 7 years old with a 10-year-old, full contact football. And, looking back, probably not the best thing to do. So carry that on through college. I was a scholarship athlete and played all 5 years in college. And then when I graduated, I went in the military in 2000. And I was in SEAL training in 2001, and then served 7 combat tours, Iraq, Afghanistan, several other places. And right around the 10-year mark is when it was time for a change. I didn't have the excitement that I used to have. It was time to focus on the family. And, at that time I was really searching for something. And I think I was having just a lot of internal struggles. And at this point, I was an instructor on the West Coast, and someone said, "Hey, I think you need to go talk to the West Coast psychologist. I think it would help." And so I said, "Sure, why not?" And I went there and I got handed a bag of medication. But I did start doing some treatments, and it helped to talk to somebody. But my first medication ended up being, I think, 7 over the next, the course of 7 years, and along struggles and everything else that comes along with, a lot of our guys that are being handed antidepressants and, Adderall to stay awake and focus, and Ambien to go to sleep, and, just the roller coaster of meds that we get put on. And so it was time for something else. And thank God I had some close friends that I trusted and a very special doctor that I was able to find an ibogaine treatment in outside of the United States. And it radically changed my life. And, on that Sunday, I turned to Amber and I said, "We need to raise a bunch of money, and we need to fund the rest of our buddies to get the same type of treatment," because I knew, the small struggles that I was having wasn't even close to some of the struggles that some of my buddies were having. And I joke, I did 7 combat tours and quit. I have friends that have done 15 and 21. And, they're having some really major issues that, we knew and we wanted to take care of. So that's kind of what started the initial focus on vets. It was a different name at the time. But since then, as you mentioned, we've funded almost 200 people. We have just an amazing set of partnerships with doctors and coaches and therapists and everybody else. So it's been pretty radical since then.
Very cool. I would love to talk a little bit, and we'll put this one to Amber, because I think a lot of people who don't serve, I have not served, but they don't necessarily understand the particular struggles that happen post-separation. Jesse, you're like, I just thought I'd go back to finance, or Marcus, you're like, okay, I'm going to get out. But what does it look like? And Amber, I'd love for you to comment from the perspective of the family. What differences did you notice? What changes had there been? As he was approaching the end of his service and post-separation, that became problematic and that you realized was part of what needed addressing?
Absolutely. Drinking was always a part of the culture, and so it really didn't stand out as being a problem until post-military. So the drinking was an issue, but what was perpetuating a lot of the drinking was symptoms like, anger, rage, insomnia, aggression, depression, just this plethora of things that were band-aided as being PTSD. And I saw something really troubling happening, and that was not that Marcus was caught up in what was, what had gone on overseas. He was really struggling cognitively. And, this is a really tough day. There was a suicide in the community, which prompted me to realize that maybe these struggles were out of his control, and he needed he needed help. And so I just was overcome with this grace, which is very difficult for women who have been in that supporting role for so many years and so many combat deployments, to find it within you to, keep carrying this weight. And so, I found this extraordinary grace for him, and I just got after it, trying to find help. And we started with a bunch of Western approaches, brain clinics, and some alternative things as well. But, he was, if anything, more frustrated, as these clinics weren't working and nothing was really moving the needle for him. And, I came to a point where I had to choose between, I felt like I had to choose between me and my kids. And that's just such a horrible choice, because I felt like if I had to choose them, but by doing so, they might end up fatherless. And so that weight, I just had to find it within myself just to keep going. So this is truly like a miracle.
Wow. Wow. And I appreciate you sharing the cognitive challenges, because a lot of times we focus solely on post-traumatic stress, but there are those TBI issues that can have a lot of similar symptoms.
Yeah.
And so it's important not to just treat one or the other. They both need to be treated. Jesse, if you could talk a little about what you had tried before heading down to try ayahuasca.
Yeah, of course. Just really when I ended up settling in Tampa, Florida, I found a great job, tried to go into like a normal life, stability, had a house that I was renting, great social network. I probably had gotten a little out of shape since the military. So that was one of my main efforts of like, oh, this is probably leading to, a lot of what I was struggling with. So made an active effort to join a gym and go there regularly. And go out, associate with friends. I tried journaling. I tried meditation. I tried all sorts of different things. I never went down the prescription medication path, just my own personal choice, but essentially everything else. And that's why I ended up going to the VA, because nothing was working. And so I thought at the very least, hey, let me try to get a therapist to talk to. Because we had that offered to us through their mental health department. And I thought at least, having it couldn't hurt. And that maybe can reveal some things that I'm struggling with, or some things that I'm ignoring, or just have that support or that accountability system. I think a lot of us, especially coming from like special operations, our ego or our own sense of being able to accomplish anything on our own kind of gets in our way oftentimes. And I was definitely subject to that. And so this was sort of me, I guess, offering of like, okay, I'm vulnerable. Let me try to find somebody to help me. And that was where I came to that situation where, and it wasn't on the employees, the people that saw me, it wasn't their fault. It was the protocol that they're following. And they essentially told me that, they might be able to get me a few sessions with a therapist, but if I wasn't willing to go on their full protocol, that they really couldn't help me beyond, a month or two. And so, I walked out of there like, that doesn't help me at all. Right.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Marcus, if you could tell us a little, I know you've gone to some brain treatment centers. What kinds of things had you gone through? Because I would love to have people understand the breadth of things that people try before going to psychedelics, and how much of a difference the psychedelics can make, because so many things are just not that effective. So if you could tell us a little bit about your story pre-psychedelics.
Sure. I first went to a brain clinic in Bethesda, Maryland at Walter Reed. And I don't know if that was more of a treatment clinic, but it was more of, diagnosing of the issues that you currently have, head to toe, and not just brain, kind of mind, body, soul, hips, knees, joints, everything. That was the first. And from there, I went to a few brain clinics in Dallas and Orange County, some hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which I think is great. But I thought I was supposed to walk out of there completely recovered and completely healed without any more issues. Some of them, and ones I won't say indirectly, I feel like I got a lot worse. And it was very frustrating because the people who were paying for these treatments, some of these places were $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 for 2 weeks of work. And so you would expect that the amount of money that's being put into you're going to get out of it. And it just didn't help. And again, I had friends before me that have gone through these clinics and then friends after me. So here's all this money that, you know, I don't want to call it being wasted. It was wasted on me because it didn't work for me. Maybe it helped some others. So I'd say the 5 brain clinics, the medications that we talked about before, some talk therapy with, you know, I can't even count how many therapists I talked to. Yeah, I mean, kind of like what Jesse said, just looking for answers, thinking you're going to find them, and walking out disappointed. And when you walk out disappointed, you're hopeless because you feel, well, this is where everyone's going, and this is what they say you're supposed to be doing. And now what? Like, is this it? Is this what it's going to be like for the rest of my life? That's the scary part.
Yeah. In your bio, you had put that it was a last-ditch effort to try psychedelics. So can you discuss a little bit about what finally got you to try it, and then about your journey with psychedelics and how that was different from everything you'd tried before? Sure.
Well, as Jesse mentioned, I came from the school of, I went to an all-boys Catholic school in Queens. You know, all drugs are bad. You know, if you're Irish or Italian, you just drink a lot. And, you know, so for me, I was scared to death. It took me a year, by the way, to go get treated. Amber was working behind the scenes, as she always does, putting the plans in place, and I just kept saying no until finally I was leaving one of the treatment centers, and I said, you know, I've had it. I can't take this anymore. I'll try anything.
And I had said the same thing too. Like I had it. I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, we were not in a good place.
He'd been out of the house for at least 8 to 10 weeks when we finally had peace. And he needed to come home because his funding was running out. And I thought, there's no way he can come back and disrupt our peace.
You know, I was in Southern California. I had access to my surfboard. So I was like paddleboarding every day. So you think like life is good, right? Because, you know, the water's kind of what fills me up. And I was still in a bad place. Super anxious, super disgruntled. Everything was just bad. And so I took a leap of faith, you know, did my research, I think like everybody else does. And just, the more I read, the more I was intrigued that these psychedelic therapies really hit something that is really almost can't explain. We're learning to explain them more. And so for me, this was a no-brainer. I feel like a bit of a guinea pig and a test dummy. So I took that leap of faith, and man, it's been pretty amazing.
Yeah. So we'll go over to Jesse now. Once you got down, you had done the same. I know you did your investigation. Okay, you found a retreat center that you felt was safe, and that had a good reputation, and you undergo this ayahuasca experience. Can you talk a little bit about what kind of healing you had through that first experience?
Yeah, I also want to address something in continuation of what Marcus said. I think we've probably all had the same sort of issue too, of a lot of our mental health journey, we've really had to figure it out on our own, like reading studies, talking to other veterans, just my own experience, and from what Marcus has said, being exposed to mortar tubes and explosions and just the normal wear and tear of combat, and not once did anybody bring up traumatic brain injury to me. That wasn't even discussed, and even the PTSD side of it was just kind of more of a very superficial, hey, are you struggling? No, you're good. Okay, get out of my office kind of thing. And so it was just part of the journey was figuring out what possible things could be affecting me. What is anxiety? What is this depression? Because if you don't have that, if you don't have somebody to guide you and you're figuring it out on your own and you're in a depressive state, it's very hard. So that was part of the journey. And so then when I went to the ayahuasca experience, one, it was just almost a recalibration of my brain. I often say a lot, it was almost like if you defrag a computer, after you use a computer, erase, delete, add new stuff, after a while, it gets a little bit bogged down. On reflection, I felt like my brain was in that same state, almost like it was different pieces, different personalities were warring against each other, leading to these similar sort of behavioral shifts, anxiety and all that. And so just almost immediately, I went to a week-long retreat. So there's 4 options for ceremonies. And I just felt lighter. I felt like a lot of that excess, whatever it was, got released. It felt like it recalibrated my brain, just kind of more at peace. For me, and to this day, it's never been super profound messages like some people or any sort of profound realization. It was much more subtle of just being comfortable where I'm at. And the thing that made me a true believer was even down the line, for instance, 3 months, 4 months afterwards, was just certain things that would normally stimulate my anxiety were just no longer had that interaction. So I could be in a crowded place, I could be at a bar in a social situation, and before, I'd have to use alcohol to contend with the social anxiety. But then post this experience, that was no longer there, and it almost felt like there's something missing. It took me a while to almost readjust my life, not having that anxious burden on my back. And so it's been a process, and that's what a lot of both of our programs teach is, that the psychedelics are a great tool. They're very powerful, but there's still a lot of work before and afterwards for the individuals to get the most benefit out of it through the integration. And it's really just looking inside yourself, getting more in tune with your intuition or your gut feeling, and addressing these issues before they get sunk in and cause these emotional outbreaks. So the more I look inwards and figure that out of like, oh, I'm anxious today. Why am I anxious today? Maybe I can change this thing or it's caused by that. And that's helped the process.
Yeah, it sounds like an important component of this is unlearning some of that mindset of I have no intuition, suck it up, let's keep going, because you need to get to that slightly more vulnerable place to admit that you need help and then to be open to these psychedelic treatments. So I appreciate that you all are addressing that as well as the therapy and the integration. Marcus, if we could hear from you what your actual experience with the medicines was like.
Yeah, my first experience with Ibogaine was, it was so intense. It's very difficult to try to describe the experience. You have to, when you read some of the, different blogs and articles that people write about their experience, it almost seems insane, but it really is, right? And you're in your mind, and you're in your mind for 10 to 12 hours, and then even hours after that, in more of like a dream or a sleep state. But during your kind of awakened dream state, I really experienced my whole life play out in front of me in a movie. And as Jesse mentioned with ayahuasca, Ibogaine it was definitely defragging my brain. It was lifting a lot of the heavy rocks out of my backpack and kind of throwing them back on the ground, which was great. And I got to experience a lot of things that may have been troubling me. Some experiences as a child with my father. Some of the deaths of my close buddies that I served with. So I revisited all these things during my experience. And then when I woke up, like I said, it was almost like this just bright ray of sunshine. And just the weight was just lifted off my back. And for months and months afterwards, I was able to really, I want to say react to situations that before I would react in a negative way. The anxiety, the impulsivity, and the isolation. And it really helped me think back to my experience. And that's why I tell people I can go back to that experience for the rest of my life now and remember what it was like, even though if the glow and the medicine is still not like actually moving through my body, I know what it was like, and it put me on that right path to healing, even to this day. And I still think, unfortunately, I think guys like us, we're going to struggle with this for the rest of our life. And so we have to continuously help ourselves. We have to continuously get treatment and meditate and work out and try to eat right and try to really cut back on the alcohol and just not be over impulsive and angry. And so it's a daily struggle and it's a daily work.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You talked about your experience with Ibogaine. Was that Ibogaine by itself, or was that a combination therapy?
No, it was a combination therapy. So I rested 24 hours and kind of processed everything that was going on. And then I had a 5-MeO experience, which was another kind of out of this world experience. And the synergies of those two medicines, which I'm sure plenty of people who are listening to this or watching understand that, Ibogaine really beats you down. I tell people it's one of the worst experiences you can be a part of. Some people have there's moments of lightness and fun in there, pictures of Amber and the kids and kind of doing some weird dances. And it was kind of cool, but it was very uplifting, and probably because the music was a lot lighter. But as the music got into some more heavy stuff, then it was a lot of like very demonic images and very dark, kind of dreams I would have. And so it was, those things are horrible. I mean, horrible. And I think what the 5-MeO does is, if it does take you back to a dark place, it's rather quickly, but it brings you more into like this, utopian world of, hey, everything is going to be okay. And so that's what's really nice about those two medicines combined. And a lot of the protocols that some of our funding is going towards are those, two protocols, and we're really seeing radical changes in just shifts in overall temperament and life-changing experiences. So that's what happened to me. Yeah.
Well, let's ask Amber about what Marcus was like after those experiences, because I know you said, you were just really struggling, and it was like him or the family at some point, and then he has this journey and then he returns. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like?
Yeah. I think Memorial Day's got me all emotional because I'm feeling like crying again, but I'm not going to. It was amazing. It felt like when I first met him, it felt too good to be true. Honestly, for the longest time, I thought this is just too good to be true. I don't want to share about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to get my hopes up. I don't know if it'll last. I don't know if, it would work for anybody else the way it worked for Marcus. So I just really didn't want to share because the changes that I was seeing in him were profound and miraculous. I definitely liken it to a stock market ticker, though. It's ups and downs, but generally trending upward, and those downs were necessary to pull himself out. So everything shifted. All of the things that he was struggling with, from insomnia to aggression to depression, lifted.
Yeah, we were really nervous. I mean, like we thought it was subjective. We said, "Oh, this must just be a placebo, and it's worked for me." And
well, so many things hadn't worked.
Yeah.
That it was like, this is crazy, because we were so desperate whenever he ended up, out of the U.S. doing this, that we didn't know, we didn't care. He just needed something. We needed something to work. Yeah,
and then when friend 2 and friend 3 and friend 4 and friend 8 had the same experiences, we went, oh wow, there's something like amazing here that's happening. So we got to figure this out.
Yeah. Jesse, was that similar for you, that you had this ayahuasca experience and then suddenly people in your field, your other former like special forces members or other veterans, were they having the same experience? Is that what led you to start Heroic Hearts, or how did you go from having your own personal experience to deciding you needed to bring this to others?
As I said, after the first ceremony or through the process, it was just instantly clear that there was something to it, and everything afterwards just enforced that. And at the time when I was outreaching, it still, even though it was relatively recently, there still wasn't a wide discussion about it in the vet community. Even the first retreat we worked with vets, it was actually kind of hard to fill it up, just because and it's changed, fortunately. Now people are talking about it pretty regularly. And so for me, it was just really seeing what in myself, kind of taking that moment to reflect, is this real? I had those same suspicions. I went in suspicious, I left suspicious, but there's just things I couldn't shake, that I couldn't just shake off as placebo. And then I started, doing some research and saw that there was legitimate scientific mechanisms to explain the benefits of it. And I also reached out to some guys that were still in the service, other Rangers, other Special Forces guys. And, they were a little bit skeptical, but this community is very much, hey, if you're telling me it works, I trust you. And if it's an option, then why not let people do that? Veterans are very much like, how do we get to this objective? If that's a tool that's available to me, let's work it out. If you think it's like safe and all these sort of things. And so for that is really just that drive of, this potentially could help people, because I know it helped me. And, they at least deserve to know that there might be something out there. So early on, it was still obviously a little bit skeptical of, I thought at first it might be only like a handful of people, but even if it helps like 1% of veterans, of my buddies, and that's more than worth it. And on the same sort of journey, the more people that went, And the more we developed and strengthened our program, the results just kept getting better and better. And I still go in nervous. Anytime I go into like a vet retreat, I want everybody to come out a changed person. And there's that little bit of nervousness because psychedelics, they do hit everybody a little bit differently. It's not as controlled as like take 3 Tylenol kind of thing. But like I said, with a more controlled program, preparation, the integration side, we've just seen really great, consistent results.
Yeah, if we could stick with you for a minute, Jesse, can you tell us a little bit about how Heroic Hearts works?
Yeah, of course. So we work with other centers, which I've vetted or somebody on my team has vetted. So we make sure that the centers in various countries that this is legal, mostly in Latin America, they're doing it safe, they align with our philosophy, our ethics, and that we can trust that we can send veterans there. And so we worked with a few retreats for a few years. A veteran will come to us. We have an application process. Through that application process, we do a vetting of them, where they're coming from. Are there any risk factors in terms of health? Obviously you have to be very conscious if they're on medications, because if they're on a lot, then this might not be the next best step for them. And just, again, see where they're coming from. We found like certain personalities or certain traits really lead to them taking more out of it. And especially those guys that have tried a lot of other options like Marcus, they go into it more appreciative because they see the difference between these sort of things. When we're able to, we provide financial scholarships because a lot of the vets are generally tend to have some financial restrictions, and then just provide the program of support. So that's preparation. We set them up with integration coaching to get them in that right mindset, help them with all the logistics to get to the retreat, and then on the tail end, we provide integration support. So the one-on-one with the coaches, and then video calls following up. And just try to constantly be there. I think what both of our groups are trying to do is reestablish these veteran communities that have been lost post-service. A lot of guys leave and they come from these very strong brotherhoods, and just through work or through going back home, they often get separated and isolated. And I think this is an amazing way to reconnect them under this sort of healing banner.
Yeah, that's a great point. Marcus, could you tell us a little bit about how Veterans Exploring Treatment Solutions, or VETS, works?
I will. I'm going to turn this one over to Amber. But, we started it together. We had to do something together, and the idea was, Amber does it full time. She's the executive director. I chair the board with a few very close friends, and I think we have a really good system going. But I'd rather Amber take this one and kind of run with it.
First of all, to pick up on something that Jesse had mentioned, that level of trust that exists is really why this has been so successful. But that there's a huge weight with that. I was speaking with someone this weekend, and he said, "I just trust you guys. I just trust you. I don't have any hope left, but I trust you." And that is huge. So, it's such an honor. It's so humbling to do this day in and day out. And it's guys like that and amazing success stories that make this thing work. It's been so successful because of the level of trust and buy-in. Right now we're working only with the SEAL community because, there are people, I feel like, we just have so much admiration and respect for them that we have to start there.
And there's enough there that, need treatment at the moment. So before we are able to venture out, we got to take care of our own first.
The need is very great. And so, at any given time, we have a waiting list of over 30 individuals seeking funding. The way we work is we put the onus on them to do their own due diligence, and we have a basic vetting. Typically, everyone goes to the same place and seeks the same protocol, but that's not a requirement. So we provide the veteran with a check to seek treatment on his own. And we advocate also for psychedelic-assisted therapies for veteran healthcare. We track outcomes. We want to back research on the TBI piece. I think that psychedelics have, been clearly proven to be extremely beneficial for trauma and, repressed emotional things. But the TBI piece to me is so exciting. So, the 3 pillars of our organization are resources for them to seek the treatments, research on all of the outcomes, to push for change, to advocate, which is pillar number 3, for broad change to veteran healthcare. Because, heroic hearts and all the hard work Jesse's doing, the hard work we're doing, it's only sustainable up to a certain point. The need is so great. And our ultimate goal is to make these therapies available in the US.
Yeah, so the more we can get out there and speak, I think it's really important. I think I'll go toe to toe with anybody about this subject now. In DC, in the military, senior leaders, we're getting some really interesting people who are coming on board, because as Jesse said, it's a tool that's working. And so if you can't realize or understand that a tool that works, doesn't matter, right now, most of it is not legal in the US, doesn't mean it shouldn't be explored. And guys like us are going to go find that treatment, especially when it's the last ditch effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Amber, let's stick with you for a minute. I know you are reaching out to the wives as well. Can you talk a little bit about the work you're doing with some of the wives of the SEAL team members?
Absolutely. Our first goal was, like we had mentioned, we were very skeptical that this is too good to be true. So the first goal was 12 SEALs in a 12-month period, to make sure that it would work for more than just Marcus and that the results would last. The second goal was 100 and IRB research to accompany the majority of the 100. So when both of those goals were met, we pivoted and launched VETS. We operate with the system that I just explained. And in 2020, we added, in January, we added wives to our mission, because they have such high levels of trauma as well. And that so far has been phenomenal for them, for their own healing. And it's been really incredible for couples and the growth process. A lot of these couples spend years apart, and it's very challenging to come back together at the end of, a 10, 15, 20 plus year career as a couple. So we've got to support not only the guys that are seeking these life-saving interventions, we've got to support the women too for maximum efficacy.
Yes. Thank you for that, Amber. Jesse, I'm going to send this one back over to you, because right now we're talking, you each have nonprofits, but how are you and how can we all work to change the veteran healthcare system so that this isn't falling on private nonprofits to tackle what is a national issue?
Right. And I want to reiterate what Marcus and Amber highlighted, is that, we're not United Healthcare. We're trying to bring exposure to this because, as we both demonstrated, it works, but it's not financially stable for us to support everybody. There's just a crazy amount with minimal social media exposure on both of our parts. We have these enormous wait lists. And so what we're trying to do is change the conversation, bring these powerful veteran stories in front of people who can make change, bring it to the heartland of America to break those stigmas. And that's the way I think we're both going to be able to be successful. So it's awesome to have them working on that side as well. So for us, one of the ways we're trying to accomplish that is we started an ambassador program. And the ambassador program is essentially individuals, veteran or otherwise, who want to help, who want to dedicate some time or their professional expertise to moving the psychedelic movement forward, and especially helping veterans. It's our way of empowering that. So it's still in its infancy, and it's going to take some time to fully evolve and figure out what it is. But we're starting to get names, we're starting to get people to come here. And so hopefully, once all the quarantine and COVID passes, then we can use these individuals in various locations to form micro hubs and reestablish these self-sustaining communities. So, what I envision is somebody in LA or somebody in New York, whether it's a veteran or not, they get these groups that are willing to donate some time, help us do local events, help us find local businesses that can financially support groups in that area. And ideally, if they are able to accomplish that, even a small group, when that veteran comes back to that community, they have this built-in integration circle, which is so key. One of the hard parts is, setting people up for success, because sometimes you can help them and they can have these profound experiences, but if they go back home and they're still in tremendous debt, they don't have a family, they already got divorced or whatever, it could just be a very hard road for them to proceed. And so trying to figure out how can we establish these communities of support to check in on people.
Yeah, absolutely. Integration is a huge part for all of psychedelics, but I think especially, like you said, for veterans who need that community that was lost when they separated from the service. We've got about 1 minute left. Marcus and Amber, anything you would like to contribute to how we can work to change veteran healthcare on a more national scale so that it doesn't fall on your shoulders?
Well, I would say first, when you say, you never served, I want to say, you, Lynn, very special doctor that treated me and saved my life, and everybody else, the therapists, Rick, PSFC, MAPS, you guys are serving in your own regard and helping us. We served in the military. That's just because, that's what we were tuned to do and built to do. And we love, running around the mountains and doing crazy things like that. You guys running around doing crazy things too, but serving us. So thank you so much, and just continue doing it for our betterment, the betterment of life and the global kind of movement.
It's certainly a beautiful thing that's happening. We found ourselves in this spot, this really beautiful spot that is completely bipartisan and it's just a humanity thing. And so we, we'll do whatever it takes. We'll do whatever it takes to not only continue helping members of our community, but veterans overall. It's heartbreaking when I get some emails that are just absolutely gut-wrenching to not be able to help that person. And you think, how much time do they have left? We're totally committed, and it is a team effort. So we're so thankful to be in this with all of you guys.
Well, I'm so thankful that you all joined and were so willing to share your story, and that you share so much of your time and efforts right now to keep this fight up. And I wanted to remind everybody else, please donate. We've put links in the chat for you to donate to Heroic Hearts and vets. So thank you again, Jesse, Marcus, and Amber, for joining us today.
LynnMarie, thank you. You're awesome.
Thank you, LynnMarie.
Thanks, Jesse.
Marcus, Amber, great to